Welcome to the award-winning Texas Toast Podcast, your podcast home for all things Texas country. Kick back and enjoy as we toast the best in Texas country. Cheers, everyone. A big welcome to Randy C. Moore to the Texas Toast Podcast, and we finally made this happen. So nice to have you.
It's so nice to be here. What
Good.
a wonderful day.
All right, so let's just start off with, first of all, talking about the success of high cost of living to Texas country radio.
All right. The thing about the song is it was recorded in Nashville a while back, and I was kind of sitting on it for a while, waiting for a good time to put it out, and I thought, you know what, summer's coming up. I'm getting tired of all this serious stuff we're having to deal with, so we need something kind of lighthearted and almost darn near stupid to listen to. So I put it out. It's a fun song. It's a
Yes.
kick in the pants. And a lot of the radio programmers and disc jockeys have really responded to it quickly. It really jumped into the charts the first couple of weeks. It jumped right into the 60s, which is something that's never happened for mine. It's kind of slowed down a little bit, but it's getting steady spins and ads and here and there. So I can't complain. I'm really pleased with its progress.
Yeah, it's a great song. I enjoy it tremendously. And let's also talk about, let's just kind of go back through your background a little bit and all the stuff that you've done. I the first thing that caught my mind when I saw your bio when it got sent over is Arch Yancey from KNUZ. I remember my grandparents used to listen to KNUZ. Anytime I went to their house, KNUZ was on. He was one of their favorites. So I know that was at your young age, but it helped really start you in the music business.
It did. Arch Yancey was the big guy over there. He'd been at KIKK for a little bit, but he was a KNUZ guy for a long time and really helped grow that station into what it was. But the funny thing about it is, or not the funny thing, but the coincidental thing about it is my dad went to high school with Arch, and they both played football together. They went to Arch is from Memphis. My dad is from Memphis. They're both from Memphis, Tennessee. So my dad was a big time football player. He was all Tennessee, all Memphis football player, and Arch was kind of a second stringer, third stringer guy. So he looked up to my dad. Dad was a big deal in high school. So when I started making records later on, and my dad was like, I think I know this Arch guy. I think he went to school with me. He wasn't in the same class, so he calls him up and he's asking him. He says, "Do you remember me?" He says, "Oh, I remember you, man. How you doing?" Blah 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 blah, and so forth and such. And so Dad said he had a son, me, that was making music and stuff like that, and wanted to see if I couldn't make some records. And so Arch helped me get some demo sessions in Houston, helped me get that together, and then he invited me out to be on his weekly show that he was doing at Gilley's nightclub on Thursday nights. And that was for a guy who's 15 or 16 years old, that was really good experience for me, because I got to be on a stage in a really huge nightclub with a really great band and sing a few songs and be in front of people who were there to hear music, dance, and start fights. And so, what could be a better place to be for a young guy like me to kind of get my feet wet? So it was a lot of fun. And Arch really, he was, I will say, he kind of gave me a good positive start out, because there could have been a lot of ways I could have started out. And looking back on it, I'm really thankful that Arch was in my life and that my dad knew him. So it was it was another way of God looking out for me.
Absolutely. And I bet you got to see did you get to see a lot of other musicians play there while you were kind of in and out at that age?
Yeah, I mean, while I was doing the shows at Gilley's, he would have other guests come in who were mainly like songwriters. One of the most famous one was a guy by the name of Floyd Tillman, and I had just recorded a song that was an old song from Jimmy Davis called "You Are My Sunshine." It was my grandmother's favorite song, and we had a record out. And Arch was actually playing the record on his show at that time. And so Floyd Tillman came and sat down with us on the break, and we all, you get beer at Gilley's. You'd get beer. That was the thing. So so I'm sitting there. I'm not drinking a beer, but everybody else is having beer from a pitcher of beer or something. And so Floyd Tillman said, he said, so I understand that you got a record of "You Are My Sunshine." I said, yes, sir, I do. He says, you know who wrote that song? I said, yes, sir. I said, Jimmy Davis. He goes, nope. He said, you're looking at the guy that wrote it. I said, really? He goes, yep. He said, I sold that song to Jimmy Davis way back when I needed to eat. So he said, I said, how much did you sell it for? He said, I sold it to him for $50.
Oh my goodness. What
So
an
I
awesome
was like,
story.
whoa, I
Thank
was
you
stunned.
so much for that.
Yeah, Floyd Tillman, a legendary songwriter, and a lot of legendary songwriters I learned after that had started out just in that particular way. They couldn't get publishing deals, they couldn't get listened to, but they could certainly get a song sometimes to somebody who was an artist, and a lot of times that person would know that they were way at the advantage and like, look, if you'll let me buy that song from you, I'll put it out, but I got to put my name on it. And they would certainly go, well, yeah, because I'm I got to buy groceries. I got kids to support. So yeah, so there were pretty cool experiences at Gilley's nightclub for sure, and it was just kind of the start of a lot of things that sort of went in my favor as being a younger person, and you know, I had a lot of encouragement early on along the way. So that's kind of what has kind of pushed me, even to this day. I look back on that and I go, those were good times to get started, and those were good people that I got to be around. I'm so fortunate that I got to be around those folks.
Very fortunate. Not a lot of people can tell a story like that. That's an amazing story. So upon high school graduation, things even got better for you. You went off to Belmont, and then during that time, you were also like a guest on WSM at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah, I worked at an amusement park in the summer times up there called Opryland USA,
Mhm.
and it was part of the Opry experience. They had a hotel. They still have a hotel. They had the Opry House. They still got the Opry House, and then they had the park, which they don't have the park anymore. But I was a regular performer out there, and they would go out and they would find some of us who were in the shows, and they'd offer us spots on the Grand Ole Opry. So they offered me a spot on the Opry, and of course, uh, I was like dying to do that anyway. So it was an amazing opportunity at 18 years old to be standing on the stage with a guy known as the King of Country Music, Roy Acuff, and his band, and singing in front of a full Opry house. It's almost like you don't really know you're there when you're doing it, but I must have pulled it off because they invited me back some years later. So yeah, it was a good
That-
experience. Loved it.
yes. And so all the time you're studying at Belmont. What did you major in?
Well, I was only there for a couple of years. I went to there for they had a program that they had started a couple of years before I started going there. A few years. It was called It's a Music Business Program. It was actually the first one of its kind for universities, and it was kind of still in the experimental stages. But they had come far enough to where they had a recording studio and they had professional guys coming in who were recording engineers to be instructors and things like that. So I learned a lot about modern recording. I learned a lot about modern songwriting, and I learned a little bit about knocking around the music industry, kind of when to keep my mouth shut mostly, and kind of when to actually make a phone call and try to seek out help from someone who would know better than I do about some particular aspect of business. Um, an artist should know as much about business as they can, but it's kind of hard to get caught up in the details of it simply because you don't know all the tricks and all the trap doors. But if you got a good lawyer or a good publisher or a good manager, then you can certainly navigate a lot of those things without getting yourself in a whole lot of trouble, and maybe actually attain a little bit of success. So Belmont taught me a lot about networking with people, and a lot about songwriting, and a lot about modern recording. My modern recording instructor was a guy named Scott Hendricks, who ended up being a producer for Faith Hill and people like that, Tim McGraw. So I had a pretty good start on a guy who taught me how to work in the studio a little bit.
When did you first start writing songs and then getting in the studio and recording?
Um, I started writing songs. I was working. I was in junior high when I started playing guitar and singing in front of people, and it was right. It was really weird because I started listening to. This is in the mid '70s, early '70s. I started listening to a lot of the uh, folk. rock artists at that time. These were people who have names like Jim Croce and John Denver and Harry Chapin and Gordon Lightfoot and a lot of these different things. Jonathan Harris. A lot of records were acoustic guitar driven, acoustic um, sounds, and really great songwriting woven into that stuff. So I started writing songs. It was funny because must have been some gap there that I needed to fill. So I started writing songs about the time he went off to school. And that's when everything kind of started to go a little faster for me as far as like developing that skill. And then actually being able to go into the recording studio and sit down and do a pro recording deal with some guys in Houston, which was an amazing experience for a kid who was 14 or 15 years old at that time. So yeah, I guess I was probably like 13 or 14 when I started writing songs.
Wow. And so also I'm looking at your career. I mean, it's like going from that into that. I guess you spent most of your time in Nashville, the majority of your music career.
Yeah, well, when you move to Nashville, you don't really live there. You just go back there
That was
because
your music
I did a
base.
lot of
Yes.
traveling, and in between times, you spend time in the studio, you spend time doing that whole networking thing, meeting people, co-writing songs, learning about the business, and always making sure that you're available because the key to success most of the times is are you available? Can you do it? Saying no should never be in your wheelhouse. So I learned to just say yes. Whenever the phone would ring, the answer would be yes before I picked it up, and then after I hung it up, I'd go, okay, I hang up the phone now. I need to figure out how I'm going to do what I just said yes to. So
Nice.
there you have
Well,
it.
you've opened shows for a lot of people: Hank Williams Jr., David Allen Coe, Vince Gill, Amy Grant, just to name a few. How did all of those come about? Was at what point in your career was that at?
Well, I was working with a group called the Knott Brothers for a little while, and we played in places where we got to open for big acts. A guy named Jerry Newton owned a huge nightclub there in Tennessee, and he was having name acts come in on a weekly basis, putting on shows. And so we would be the opening act, which gave us a lot of experience in front of new people and gave me a lot of experience watching how big professional acts do, not just on stage, but how they prepare themselves, how they handle themselves with people, how they handle themselves just on their own, not particularly in front of people. So gained a lot of that, and then later on, I continued to do things in Nashville and then outside of Nashville, and all that kind of stuff, played into me being able to be around people that I admired and knew from basically listening to their records on the radio, and here they are closing being the headliner of a show that I'm getting to open. So it was I don't know, it was almost like an out of body experience a lot of times to do that kind of thing. Ending up doing a show in October of 2001 with a bunch of rock artists who were from New Jersey. I was kind of the only country boy there with a bunch of guys from Memphis. We were doing songs from Sun Records. That was our part of this show. It was a benefit show at the Count Basie Theater, and the headliner was Bruce Springsteen, and of course John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora were on the bill, along with people like Phoebe Snow, Joan Jett, Joe Ely, the Smithereens, the Rascals. It was a big show. We did 2 nights of that stuff, and boy, was that like just off the charts, a great experience for me. The band leader was a guy named Gary Talent. Gary was the bass player for the E Street Band for many many years, and so they basically brought him in to be the musical leader of the whole band. And the band's everything about that show was great. So. Um, as far as like opening for artists that you've named it and that you probably see on my list, um I will tell you all of this stuff, anything that you're seeing there that looks like, wow, how did you get to do that? I got to tell you, everything I ever planned never happened, and everything I never planned happened. So most of this stuff was completely unplanned. I just happened to be available, right place, right time, and I was able to do the right song. So I've lived a charmed life as far as like an artist goes. So I have no complaints really whatsoever, and I'm living the best years of my life now, being able to put my own records out because of the way that the business has changed and the way that people consume music. It's much easier for a guy like me to do what I want to do and do it how I want to do it without being at the mercy of a committee, a record label, a management team, any of that kind of stuff.
Right,
So
right.
it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun being me right now, so I can't complain.
Well, there's nothing like working in our Texas red dirt country music industry. There's so many good musicians out there, and you've done such a good job, and you've really jumped in wholeheartedly with the industry.
Yeah, Texas is a fun place, and really, if you think about it, I don't know how familiar you are with all of this, but the Texas music scene is almost like a mirror of the actual state of Texas itself, which is a republic. Which, as they tell me, and as I've read, the Republic of Texas is actually part of the United States, but could easily be independent of the United States
Yes.
at any given moment if it wanted to be, simply because the way that it was adopted into the the United States. And well, I'll give you an example. I don't know if you know this fact or not, but it's the only state in America where you can fly our state flag at the same height that you can fly
Mhm.
the American flag.
Yes, yes.
So that should tell you everything right there, not only about Texas but about Texas music. Highly independent, driven, fun, just everything that there is good. I think about the music industry, you'll be able to find it here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what do you have upcoming as far as music? Are you working on it back in the studio? And where do you record at?
The place that you're looking at behind me is where I
You
do a lot of
doing
my
it all
work.
yourself? Yes.
This is my post production studio. It's called the Lobo Ranch. It's here in Lovekin. Most of my sessions that I do, I work with other musicians in Nashville on tracking sessions. Sometimes I'll go up there and I'll do a tracking session, or I'll do tracking sessions in Muscle Shoals. I have musicians I work with there, or sometimes I will do something here and I will send it to those guys and I'll say, I need drums. I need piano, and they'll know what to do. So they know me well enough to know what my likes and dislikes are, and where my wheelhouse is. So um, my favorite kind of music track or musician that I listen to is one that I hear it and I go, boy, if I knew how to play that instrument, that's exactly what I would have done. So I try to make sure that I work with folks like that. And so they don't disappoint ever. A guy named Greg Morrow plays most of my drum uh, tracks and stuff and everything. A guy named Tony Harrell plays a lot of my piano stuff, along with a guy named Gordon Moat. Then I've got various other guys who play things. A guy named Mike Brignadello is a great bass player. I use him a lot too. All these guys are in Nashville. So, and I've worked with a guy named Norbert Putnam over the years, and he's down in Muscle Shoals, and he has a whole team of guys down there that we work with as well. So, as far as my recording goes, it's all centralized here, but sometimes it's a little spread out. But that's okay. Everybody knows. Everybody gets on the same page pretty quickly.
To kind of back up, one thing I forgot to mention also is that you're a member of the European Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yes, which was a big surprise. My records had been getting played in Europe for quite a few years. My promoter, Jenny Foley of Margin Promo, she was able to get a lot of these songs to disc jockeys and to programmers overseas, and Europe really responded to what I was doing probably better than any other overseas market. So, um, and I also toured over in Europe, not extensively, but enough to make a difference, in Monte Carlo, in France, and in Denmark and places like that. So, when this came along, I was I was pleasantly surprised and pleased, uh, because the day that they put me in, Carrie Underwood was also on the list of inductees. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, European Country Music Hall of Fame, definitely a very nice gesture for sure. I always thought people who were in the Hall of Fame had to be dead. So so I wasn't going to go there, but they met me halfway.
Well, moving back closer to home, you have a busy schedule. You are playing like, I mean, I saw your schedule. It's just packed.
I play a lot of the same places because they're familiar with me. The people who are in my following are familiar with these places. Most of them are like listening rooms and wineries and things like that. Um, every now and then I stretch out. I'm going to be going to Lukenbach and doing a dance hall show at the end of this month on the 29th. That's a 7 o'clock thing on a Saturday. I'm going to be doing the Pasadena Hometown Opry down there on Spencer Highway in October. Um, in a couple of weeks, I'm headed to Nashville to do a show with my old guys that I used to play with, the Knott Brothers. We're doing 2 or 3 shows up there. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've got some wheels and some mileage, and I'm hoping that Firestone will give me an endorsement one of these days.
So as soon as this current radio single, I mean, it's moving. It's still got a lot of traction. Do you have another radio single ready to go for Texas Country Radio?
I do actually, and the next record I'm gonna be releasing really came out of the same batch that my current record came out of. These songs were recorded. There was a kind of a small window of time there where the Country Music Hall of Fame sort of loaned out RCA Studio B for record production, and so a friend of mine was working with a thing called Little Javelina Sound in Nashville, and so they acquired that contract and went in. So they were there for a couple of years, and for those couple of years, I was around, and they decided to bring me in to make some records on me. So the next one that I'm going to be coming out with after High Cost of Low Living is a thing called More Than One of the Boys, and it's another song that's a lot of fun since we have such long hot summers that go into fall. The fun really never stops around here in Texas. So I need another fun song to kind of get us driven all the way into, winter, so to speak. So More Than One of the Boys is the next one coming up.
Well, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, you want to hear a little bit of it?
Sure, let's do it.
So when I wrote this song at the time, I was with somebody. I was actually married to somebody who has nothing to do with this song whatsoever. So it must have either been wishful thinking or a future vision because I ended up not being married and then getting married again. And the lady that I'm married to now, this song describes her to a T. So I guess I was predicting my own future, reaching out, whatever. So it goes like this. When we walked down the aisle and said I do, all the boys said, man, it's all over for you. You'll be mowing your yard and kissing your fishing boat goodbye. They don't know what I found, 'cause she's the best buddy there is around. Now they're all wishing they had a lady like mine. She likes hooking a bass, laying in the grass on the shade of the river bank. She likes driving a truck with the radio up, rocking to the Rolling Stones and all. Hank. She likes a rowdy crowd where the music is loud, but when we leave behind the smoke and noise, well, I'm so glad she's more than one of the boys.
Oh, nice. That
That's all
is
I'm
a
gonna give you
fun
for now.
one. Yeah, I like that. Like that lot. So good luck with that. Looking forward to getting that one in and getting on the radio on Texas Toast Radio.
All right.
Yes. One other thing I wanted to cover that I saw that was also sent over about the Amazon Prime film.
Yeah. Last year was a kind of a banner year for a song called Cats in the Cradle. It was the 50th anniversary of the release of that record and it becoming a hit record for a guy named Harry Chapin. And so I have a friend of mine who's in the film business and he calls me up. He says, Randy, we're going to make this film that celebrates 50 years of Cats in the Cradle. And it's pretty amazing how much footage that we have and who we have on the film. I said, well, who's in it? He said, well, he said, Billy Joel's doing some stuff in it. He said, Robert Lamb from the group Chicago is doing it. Vince D is in it. We've got one of the guys from Run DMC in it. We've got Judy Collins in it. He just kept going on and on. I said, "Well, that's great." I said, "What? Why do you want me in here?" She said, "He says, well, he says, I got to tell you, he says, I really love the way you make records, and he says, I really respect your songwriting and your creativity, and he said, we'd like to get your take on it as a producer, as a creative guy." I said, well, I actually do this song in my show live. He goes, well, he said, when we come and film your part, he said, just play that, and then you can talk about it. And I said, okay. So I did that, and they took the film and they showed a little bit of that to Harry Chapin's family, and the family liked what I was doing, so they said, he should actually put this record out. So I thought, well, okay, I don't know if I'm going to get any better blessing to do something that I haven't ever written than that. So I put the song out last year on Father's Day. Did amazing on the charts, and then the film actually appeared. It started out in November. It was on Amazon Prime, Apple TV. Now you can watch it on Tubi. It's available. So it streams pretty much everywhere. It's called Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle, the song that changed our lives. And it's really, really a lot of fun. And then on top of that, in December of last year, I got invited to do a show called the Hunger Thon. Now, follow me here. Harry Chapin and another guy named Bill Ayers, who used to be a Catholic priest, but was very active in helping the homeless and people like that. They started a thing called Why Hunger, and it was first called World Hunger Year, but they shortened it to WHY, and then it was called Hunger. So they started this, just the two of them, and the idea was. Um, Human beings should be availed to be able to get a decent meal. That's it. So they developed it, and a lot of things started to happen that sort of coincided it with it. So this is where a lot of your food banks around the country in different cities. This is the where it all started. It all started with Harry Chapin's foundation that they started. So every year in December, they do a hungerthon where they do a show and they have people come and perform on the show. People pay. It all benefits Why Hunger. And then they have people who go in online with, they used to call in, but they go in online and they make donations. And so I got to do that. And I got to do it with some pretty spectacular people. The headliner was a guy named Little Steven Van Zandt and his band, the Disciples of Soul. I sang "Cats in the Cradle" actually with Harry Chapin's daughter Jen, which was a thrill and really cool. Then I sang a couple other songs. I did some songs with Gary Talent. He was on the show as well. And then the surprise guest was a guy named Bruce Springsteen. And this is in December. So Bruce just came out and it was all good. No intense crazy stuff. He just got up there and did those Christmas songs that everybody loves, and he just killed it. So it was a great show. So that was the whole Harry Chapin experience for me has been a wonderful thing. It's been a good little part of my journey.
Okay. Well, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I know we've worked on this for a while, and I had something. It seemed like something would always come up, but I'm so glad we finally got to sit down and visit. And you have such an amazing story, and I know there's still more to come. So we'll be keeping up and looking forward to the next radio single that comes out to follow up the one that you have out now.
Well, I really appreciate you having me and basically keeping after it and making the effort. And I'm going to give a shout out here to Luther Lewis, our buddy. I produced a record on him a few months ago, and it's doing pretty good. It's a great sounding record, I think. I mean, he's an amazing guy, and he's really, really kind of an undiscovered artist in his own right. But who knows? You never know how the things are going to happen. But I just finally said, look, I said, you need a record out there. You need one that people are playing for real. I said, I know you've made records to sell, at your gigs. I said, but pick a song. Let's do a song. So he did, and we're both real proud of the record. So hopefully we'll continue on that journey with him as well because I can't say enough about what a terrific guy he is.
Well, I ditto that. I had the pleasure and opportunity of meeting him years ago. I guess it was around 2017, 2018, and on a booking project that I was working on and yeah, fell in love with him. Like he became like we bonded like the whole group that worked together. But Luther is such a standout, and his voice is amazing, and just everything he does. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm staying in the loop on that one also.
Yeah, well, I will say, anybody who has never met him or doesn't know of him, when you say you bonded with him, he's not hard to bond with because he is a
Precious,
sweetheart
precious.
of a
He's
human
just a
being.
precious soul,
Yep.
and an amazing musician. Well, Randy, thank you so much, and I'll be keeping up and staying in touch.
Great. Good to do this, and let's do it again whenever we can keep making the effort. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I promise I won't have so many bumps in the road coming up. It just
Oh,
seemed
it's
like
all
every
right.
time we had something, it was on my end, and I'm so sorry. But we
It's
did
all
it.
about the
We did
timing,
it.
timing, timing, timing. This is probably the actual absolute best timing in the world right now. So
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Texas Toast Podcast. And now, big news. If you're a lover of Texas country red dirt music, you can now go listen to our station, Texas Toast Radio. Log on to texastoastradio.com to hear a mix of all your Texas country favorites.